Welcome to Android Faithful. This is the show, your source, your show for the latest news, hardware, and apps and other things in the world of Android on location. I'm one of your hosts, Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards, and we are here shielding ourselves from the blistering heat in Mountain View.
As best we can. This umbrella isn't doing a whole lot, though.
It seems like whenever the weather knows Google I/O is happening, that's when the sun comes out. We're in about between 85 and 90 degree weather, and we're kind of set us up to the side at Google I/O, the Shoreline Amphitheater Festival grounds. It's very noisy on the other side of this area. It's very quiet where we are right now. But yeah, no, we are here. We're about midday on Google I/O, and Jason and I, we wanted to step aside and get the show recorded because
gotta do it.
Yeah, because there's a lot going on.
I mean, we aren't in the same physical space very often, so we got to do a show here. We are. God, how many years have we been to Google I/O at this point?
Someone asked me earlier this morning, like, what I/O is this for you? I'm like, I'm not keeping track.
At this point, I have no idea.
We're very lucky to be here, and thank Google for having us here.
Yeah, indeed.
So we were in the audience during the keynote. We sat with Florence Ion, who is also here. She's off covering stuff for PC Mag. We did see former co-host, friend of the show, Michal Rahman.
Yeah, I shed a tear a little bit. Yeah. I was reminded of his excellence.
I actually needed to separate the two of them. It got a little inappropriate because we need to remember, Jason, that we're at Michal's place of work. He's here.
I forget that.
Exactly.
I forget that.
We need to be professional sometimes. But but we were here this morning for the keynote, and we've been walking around, talking to some folks, checking out some demos. We're going to see some demos a little later on, but we had a little moment in time that we wanted to come record. I think the most important thing, or at least the biggest takeaway from this whole Google I/O experience, is just that last week was huge for Android.
Yeah, last week was definitely the big Android week, which we figured coming in.
I was trying to keep track during the keynote of the number of times they mentioned Android specifically as a word, and it was
single digits.
Single digits.
Really?
Yes, yeah, it was single digits. It really only came up towards the end when they did the Android XR demo. That's when it happened. The bug droid was in the graphics, and on the screen they mentioned Android as a place where stuff can happen.
Yeah.
But just so much of this, as we anticipated, so much of this keynote was focused around improvements to Gemini, what they're doing in the AI space, how they're integrating AI stuff into the applications, even deeper than what we talked about last week in just the specific Android platform side of it. It was almost relentless. I don't know, what was your takeaway?
I mean, it was what we kind of thought it would be, right? Like the reason they have the Android show is because they want to make space for, their avalanche of news that is related to AI. I think my joke since I've been here is that every time at AI now, or at I/O now with AI, it's, hey Justin, how's it going?
It's good to see you.
Justin Payne.
Here I am.
Friend of the show.
Real reality right now.
Good to see you. Congrats on all the announcements. Yes, Justin Payne is one of the leads in the glasses, the smart glasses and everything.
You don't know. You just never know who you're going to see.
You never know who you're going to see. I had a sit down chat with him at the Google complex like 5 months ago, related to Android XR, but specifically related to XReal Project Aura, which is here in a tent. I think that people are seeing it. I haven't seen it since we've been here.
We're going there after we record this.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see that.
So what we've done so far today is we saw the keynote. We've gotten some demos of a lot of the stuff of the AI features that they're offering in Google Docs and search. Big emphasis on search, the integration of AI into search. Which I'll give them credit. Seeing the numbers, we kind of scoffed, I feel like, a year ago about the introduction of AI
into search.
But
how you differentiate between the two? Why would I use Gemini and AI mode?
It's
very similar but very different.
And you're seeing the evolution of Google in real time, and it's really as content publishers, it's kind of sad because we're seeing the search results are going the way of the dodo, so to speak. Search results are now sources for AI responses.
Yes,
which is great, but changes the whole economics. That's a whole other conversation. But still, the numbers are that they presented are compelling, and that they've seen the number of engagements in the AI overview in the search results page doubled quarter after quarter for the past year. And I think last quarter they had the most ever using it, with hundreds of millions of people using it. Because I'll be honest, once you start using it and you get a result, and then you ask it a follow-up question, and then next thing you know, you've had a conversation with it and you got the answer you needed.
You got the answer that you needed. I mean, It's so interesting to me in the last couple of years that so much of the kind of arc, the story arc of these new features related to AI is always when it first comes out, it's like, oh, I couldn't possibly, that's so weird. Why would I ever want to do that? And then the first time you use it, it like messes up royally and you're like, see, isn't that lame, blah, blah, blah. But then you go out like another year and it's like, oh, actually, I don't know when it happened, but somehow I'm using that more. Somehow things are better. The experience is better.
It's something I'm depending on now.
And that's what comes to mind for me is more and more of these things are improving to a point to where more people are. Like, I use my wife as the litmus test, right? Like now she's getting really interested in all these things that were, that I was getting into like a year ago, and I'm teaching her and everything. And as we collectively use these things more, these systems more, not just for business, but also for personal life and everything, we start to integrate those. And suddenly, like, you look back and you're like, how would I do this without this? Even though it was possible. But then it falls into the company's hands of being like, okay, we got them now. At what point do the prices start to go up?
Well,
and you know what I mean?
Which is interesting though, because one of the announcements at the keynote was
that it dropped.
Is that they lowered the price of the if you do want to get the advanced AI features on your Google One account. I think it was the Pro level.
The Pro, it was the Ultra level. I think is what went from 250 to 200.
Okay,
whatever that one is. That's Ultra. That's Ultra.
Is
and then
Ultra?
Pro, and then they have a Pro tier at $100. I mean, maybe the prices drop, but you know what the difference is? The more you use these, the more you use them for more things.
Correct,
And so then your usage goes up, and so then you need more. And so, whereas once you were okay spending $20 and you were fine, now you're starting to hit up against your limit more and more and more. And then you're like, well, I guess it makes sense to get the $100 plan. You know, that's what I did with Cloud. I'm paying $100 now.
So you are right. It was the AI Ultra pricing tier went from $249 to $200, which also brings their pricing kind of in a competitive space in line with OpenAI's pricing.
Yes.
Right. So it's making it even more compelling. And again, people ask me like, oh, should I use OpenAI? Should I use Google? But like, if you have a Gmail account, if you're using Google Photos, if you are embedded in the Google ecosystem, if you use Google Docs, if you do all this sort of stuff, that is the competitive edge Google has, that if you are subscribed to the ecosystem, it is a that much better experience. Whereas if you're using OpenAI or Claude, you still need to externally connect those applications to your stuff. You can still use it. It is still a good experience, but there's nothing finer than what Google has developed in a way that they're integrating their own products with the AI tools they're building and making that experience that much richer.
The personal intelligence is the interconnected tissue, and I mean, I am using Claude connected to my Gmail and Google and my Drive and all that kind of stuff, and it's great. And it has limitations right out of the box versus Gemini that does give you access to a lot more. So, they're all incredibly capable. They all have their ups and their downs. It's just like which flavor of ice cream is your favorite.
Right.
So
so let's dive into what was announced at the keynote, specifically in around Gemini. I think the big thing that Sundar came out and Sundar has a very metered approach to his public speaking.
Metered, that's a good word.
But you could tell his excitement was palpable for Gemini 3.5 Flash. A lot of the benchmarks and the speed that they're getting with Gemini 3.5 Flash in terms of results compared to both previous versions of Gemini, as well as comparing the benchmarks to other competitors in the space, it appears as if 3.5 Flash is the new hotness, right?
Yeah, I mean the Flash, the Flash is usually the model that's faster. It's also usually like trimmed down from a size and capability perspective. But what they're saying about Flash 3.5 Flash is that it outperforms 3.1 Pro.
Yes.
So if you were on 3.1 Pro and you were getting all the capabilities there, coding, agentic stuff, all that kind of stuff, all those benchmarks are being matched according to Google with 3.5 Flash. So you're getting the faster speed, you're getting the cheaper access, and you can tell that they love it because the entire event was filled with, and here's another, effort that we're rolling out. Relies on 3.5 Flash.
So much of the stuff that they showed within search and within other aspects of it, the Gemini app and things like that, are directly tied to the advancements they made with 3.5 Flash, right? And we'll get into some of that. The agentic tasks, the generative UI stuff that's happening now is really kind of remarkable. We'll get into that when we talk about search. And the next question though, which Sundar anticipated, was okay. Well, when is 3.5 Pro coming out? And he said, just give us a month. And so,
it's going to come out in a month.
I guess that wasn't quite ready for prime time, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Sometimes that's the way they roll, and by they I mean all of them. Sometimes they have the faster one ready early.
Yeah.
And you got to wait for the Pro. Sometimes they just release the whole family. It just really depends. I don't know how all that works. But
All right. Well, so Gemini Omni. You've been playing with this, haven't you?
I have it in my Gemini app. I've had it for the last couple of days. And it's basically what they say is eventually create anything from any input. And what they're which is like, okay, really?
Right?
Are you serious? That's kind of how they're pitching it, but the big splash right now is that they're integrating video generation into it. So the idea is that when you open up your Gemini app, similar to Nano Banana, we got very used to Nano Banana being a very capable and powerful image generation. Now you've got that video generation via Omni inside of the Gemini app. And yeah, I mean, I used it and it was hilarious. Me and you in a podcast studio kind of looked like us, kind of not.
Yeah.
But definitely, if you hear the audio, definitely does not sound like us at all. But like, how could it know?
Because you did it based off a photo.
Yeah, I did it based off.
You uploaded a photo and said, make a video of these two guys in a podcast studio.
Whenever I do that, though, because I did this with OpenAI's Sora when that was a thing, and now it's not a thing.
Yeah.
But you feed it, your likeness, and it creates a video. And my voice is always kind of like this.
Well, my favorite thing was you did that video of you and Tom at Spectacle Fest, and Tom was much taller than you were.
Yes,
which was very amusing in that.
Yeah. But anyways, so essentially the story there is Nano Banana, but for video now inside Gemini.
Right, and some of the examples they showed with it are really interesting and compelling, and being able to like do this amazing generative video based off of a still photo or of a video already. Like if they have a video that's just taken with a single shot, and say, okay, now do a
pull
version
back
of this,
the
pull back the camera, or do a 360 spin around it. And obviously, we're seeing the final demo ready version.
They've gone through thousands of these things to get the ones that you see.
Exactly. And I always wonder how much is being touched up in post production and how much of it is actually.
Good question.
But either way, it did look impressive, and also nightmare-inducing.
It's its own type of nightmare.
And I did think they did make a point talking about the Synth ID integration and the a lot of the protections and being able to isolate and to identify what is if an image or video is used was generated with AI, and they've now introduced the ability to have Synth ID be able to tell you if the photo was taken with a pixel camera, but generative AI tools were used on top of that photo.
Yeah, interesting.
And Sundar did make the good point that this tool is only as good as manufacturers willing to use it and announce more, including OpenAI more.
Which is a big deal. Getting OpenAI on the Synth ID is definitely a big deal. But you got NVIDIA, Kakao, 11 Labs, and a few others. So
exactly.
that's good news.
Yeah. So Synth ID stuff very cool. So in the agentic, you probably talk about agentic crap all the time on AI inside, right? Like
talk about agentic crap all the time.
It is the buzzword, right? But
that's
so
true. I use agentic crap all the time.
We saw a glimpse of Google's approach to agentic last week in the Android show stuff. We saw more agentic tasks coming to the Android side of things, and now with today during the keynote they introduced Gemini Spark.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this.
So why are you excited about it? What makes you?
Well, because
and so what is it? And that,
I mean, basically, it's 24/7 personal agent, but it runs on Google Cloud, so it runs in the cloud. That means that it has dedicated machines. That means that when you fire off, either a scheduled agentic task or multiple agents or whatever, like I have Claude Cowork, which is what I use for a lot of this right now, and it's amazing. I've built a lot of my business around it in a very short amount of time, but it does run on your machine, which is, which can be really powerful if you have a dedicated machine for it, but it can also be kind of limiting if you have like
stuck.
two machines.
Right.
Or if I'm mobile, I have done the thing where I have an agent running here and I need to go somewhere, and I walk out to the car and put it on the seat.
You can't close your laptop.
Can't close the lid because the agent goes poof, which is nerdy, and I wonder what my neighbors think of me.
Well,
I've only done it once.
I think they've already passed their judgment. I think they probably passed their judgment on you a long time ago.
I think you're probably right. But anyways, the idea of this running in the cloud, which it was funny at first when they announced it, I was like, well, that's that's a downgrade. I don't want all my stuff in the cloud. I want it local. But then at the same time, just knowing that like that thing's running all the time, I can access it from any of my machines, and it's just kind of powered by their server cloud. Like, okay, I could see why that would be really beneficial. Really,
and Sundar did make the joke that you can close your laptop and walk away, and the stuff still runs on it. Yeah, and what I think is going to be really interesting about the agentic kind of move towards agentic is that again, people who are in tech or in development get it. Mm-hmm. How can this bridge to the normal person?
Yeah.
Right. And how do we see the average user grasp their head around agentic? And if they're already using Gemini and using Gemini as a way in to continue to educate them, we'll see. Yeah.
And they just might be kind of behind that curve. The one in that very first time that they finally use that agentic feature, whatever. Does it fail miserably, and does that make them be like, oh, I hate agents, I'm never using one again? It takes them a couple of years to come back around to it.
Or they're using agents and not even realizing it.
That is the thing, right? That and also coding, which we will definitely talk about, where it's like some of these things that they announced are really not just like democratizing coding, but literally bringing coding to everyday users in an experience where they already are. And the question becomes like, are we going to overwhelm the everyday user when a block of code appears on the screen or something like that, versus just giving them a useful feature that creates a dashboard or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, the Gemini Spark integrates with MCP, Model Context Protocol, which is great because that means a lot of interoperability with a lot of different services and everything. Also, obviously integrates with Google products, and they will eventually be integrating it directly into Chrome. So, I'm super curious to see that develop out.
Yeah, for sure. They did mention Android when they talked about Android Halo, but it was a blink and you miss it.
Yeah. They kind of mentioned it at the tail end of this, and by the way, coming to your smartphone with Android Halo dedicated agents on your phone. So
okay. We'll stay tuned for more about
There's
Android
some
Halo.
Android
There's an Android mention. Android mention. Yeah. So
it's like one of the few, right?
Yeah.
We kind of already.
They also, I was really impressed. They if you have Gemini, if you haven't already, go update your app, the Gemini app on your phone. I did it during the keynote. They have a whole new neural expressive was the term, right, for the UI. There's a whole new UI layer around Gemini.
Colorful.
Yeah, it kind of glows and does all this kind of stuff. It's kind of cool. But so they updated the app, and then they also showed off some cool stuff that they're doing on the Mac, the Gemini Mac desktop app for interacting directly with the operating system, where you could like highlight files in Finder and then tell Gemini to do something with it, and it will analyze those files
without you having to load it in. It just kind of grabs whatever you've highlighted in Finder. I think that's pretty cool. Actually,
that magic. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally.
So a lot of Gemini, a lot of Gemini, a lot of AI, but it's to be expected, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything that we missed on, or?
Probably, but I think that's most of them. I mean, yeah. Then they showed off. Let's see here. Gemini Live, regional dialects. That was actually really interesting. Although I don't speak any of those other languages, so it's hard for me to know exactly how spot on.
When you're in Chicago, you can switch to it.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So the Midwest dialect, and
yeah. No, I think we got most of it. As far as that's concerned, the search is the other aspect, which we'll talk about.
We're gonna get to search, but with the exception of Gemini 3.5 Pro, nearly everything was available today. Like, I was impressed that they were able to lock and load.
There was a lot of available today. And that's a good change, because that has not always been the case at Google I/O in recent years. Often that's been a criticism
coming
of
later this summer.
Cool, get me excited about something I can't even play around with now, and it seems like a lot of it. Although you are going to be paying for this, a lot of the features that they showed off are to Pro and higher, so there's that too. But,
So, all right,
should we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a quick break. We'll take a break here from our sponsor. We'll come back. We're going to dive into some of the search announcements as well as some of the other stuff coming out of I/O.
Yeah, don't go anywhere. Oh, that was the most amazing break ever.
It really was.
It's like cool and like breezy. Crisp. It feels like it's going to snow.
No, it's not. Let's do a temp check here. My phone is not hot, which is good. I'm not getting the overheating message.
Okay.
But according to Google Weather, which we all know is not reliable anymore, it is 85 degrees still. So.
Okay. And just in case you were wondering, My temperature.
Do it while you can.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know. It's probably too hot out here. It's like I don't know the difference between your forehead and the air temperature.
So
100. I'm 100 degrees right now.
Jeez, are you all right? Do you feel okay?
Gonna drink some water.
Yeah. So in addition to Gemini, a significant portion of the presentation was focused on search.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a huge portion of their business. Google is based on this being the search
legacy
engine.
business. Yeah.
And it really this is the year that really felt like search is really changing.
Really changing. I mean, they said it at the top. First major change to the search box in 25 years is what they say. And basically what that means is for 25 years, the search box has been a search box.
Yeah.
They started playing around with AI mode, I think it was last year.
Last year.
Yep. But that still kind of required you to go to a place and choose to involve yourself. Not, setting aside AI overviews, which was embedded into the search experience, but it didn't really touch the box itself.
Right.
And now what they're doing, they're basically, as you can imagine, and this is what I want to tie this to my comment earlier when Justin came up and kind of stopped me in my tracks. What I was going to say is the joke that I keep coming around to is that each and every year it's like we do everything over here and some of them over here, and then the next year it's like we do all the rest of the things over here now,
right.
And then we've got new things over here, and so
it's the constant
juggling of these features, which means all the other features eventually get filled with these things, and now it's come for the search box.
Yeah.
My question is, are people ready for the search box to change? Because it's pretty significant.
Well, the question is that are they ready for it? Will they notice it? And what kind of impact will it have? And how much, and again, going back to what I was saying earlier, how much is this going to continue to just degrade the concept of searching the web? And does Google become, it still is a search tool, but it's changing our definition of what search means. It's giving you the answers, and it's giving you the answers in the context of YouTube videos or, source material on the web, but you really got to dig to get to that original source material. It's presenting it in a different way.
Yes.
And those websites aren't good page views anymore. They're not displaying ads. Yeah. Again, it's another topic.
But it's a tricky world to go into. As you're talking about it, it has me thinking of how we've talked on the show many times about how agents on devices potentially creates a world where apps are less relevant because agents are just carrying out a task. And it occurs to me as I was listening to you that that's kind of what's happening with search too.
Yeah.
Is that our old legacy paradigm is I use search to take me to the site to do the thing.
Right.
And now search is becoming a product to just do the thing.
Yep, exactly.
Why go to the site? Why waste your time with those silly sites when you can just use the search to get you to the thing?
I'm just literally looking to see if the changes have rolled out or not. And, I know the plus button has been there for a while, but you can upload an image, create images, add canvas, you pick the model you want. So it's pretty wild to see the direction it's going in.
It's more and more embedded. So, and I don't even know, did we even say that intelligent search box, that's what they're calling it, essentially? Multimodal, helps you formulate search queries, which of course we were all like, oh, so it's like autofill. And then immediately after, the person who was presenting was like, it's nothing like autofill. And we're like, yeah, it kind of is. It's like AI autofill.
Seems very similar to it. Yeah, exactly.
But anyways. It's just AI mode capabilities bleeding into the main search experience. That doesn't mean that AI mode goes away.
No.
I think AI mode kind of becomes a sandbox for what eventually makes it to Google search.
Yeah, exactly. Because some of the stuff that you see going into it, I mean, the thing that I thought was most interesting, and I'm skipping ahead. We got to circle back to the search agent stuff. But going back to what the Gemini 3.5 Flash model can do, one of the examples that they provided, which I think is mind-blowing, but they're doing generative UI based off your search query to help explain concepts, right? So if you're asking about how does the example that we saw in the demo, so how does a watch work, in the search result return, they are live vibe, I guess not vibe coding, but AI generating coding, not just an image, but an interactive programmatic interface that allows you to see the inner workings of how a watch works, or to see a visual representation of a complex science, whether it's an equation or
the solar system,
all this
zoom in, zoom out, pick elements, drag them around, what happens when I do this.
Fully featured UI, user interface that allows you to interact with the thing to help you better learn. And I'm just thinking about, like how are my kids are going to learn in a completely different way than I did, because it used to be you'd have to search, and like the example they gave in the keynote was like an example of how a black hole, like two black holes interact with each other, and like and we've all seen those flat diagrams of like the concentric circles and the black hole, but this is like you can change the speed and the rotation and the gravitational pull, where we just had encyclopedias with flat images, right?
Yeah,
Like,
or we had a web page that was built by somebody specifically to demonstrate that thing, or an app built by somebody to specifically demonstrate that. And now this stuff's happening in a matter of seconds when you do the query. It's kind of like it understands, oh, this would be a good opportunity to run this part of the model to create an interactive element with multiple buttons and sliders and it's really kind of interesting.
Really wild.
That of course runs up against the ongoing question of like, but that's the work of like coders and developers and blah blah blah. But at the same time, like if tech can do things, why not let the tech do things? That's always kind of been what's driven technology.
Really interesting distinction I picked up on was language matters and words matter. They're starting to use the term builders.
Builders, yes.
Instead of developers.
Yes.
Right? Because we're building interfaces, we're building this, we're builders. Builders this way, they're saying.
Yeah, it's a good call.
There wasn't as many mentions of developers, rather builders.
We don't want our developers to feel like we're replacing them.
Right.
Because we're not.
Right.
They're builders.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right, well, tell us about search agents.
So search agents. Basically, Google says information agents, essentially. 24/7, working in the background, very similar to what we were talking about a little bit earlier with Spark, but embedded in search. So, maybe you want to monitor the sale of a product, or you want to like set up like a plane ticker, for like the right flights or whatever. Keep me updated on biotech stocks or something like that, and give it the factors that you think determine the kind of the urgency of those information blasts, and it can assign an agent or agents to do this 24/7 from search. And again, it's like, okay, well, this is what we're talking about in other aspects of Gemini, but now it's also in search. I just find myself in a very familiar position that I was at last year with AI mode, which was trying really hard to understand, okay, but what's the difference between these two things? Because they do so many of the same things. And it is the context of, but you're in the search product for a very specific and different reason than you might go to the Gemini app to do that thing. And so I'm curious to see how I think to use that, because right now I'm having a hard time.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, some of the stuff with the search agents I thought was interesting was the financial example of I'm interested in stocks that I don't know finance, but I'm interested in biotech stocks that sell at this stock price and have this kind of market cap, whatever, and it just constantly searching, and then you'll get an alert on your phone saying, hey, these stocks match your query, right? So you don't, instead of having to always be checking the indexes, right?
Yes.
Or the other example they said is just set up a search agent to tell me when my favorite bands go on tour. And then it's Weezer's going on tour next month, right? Now, I would like a little more specificity. I would show me, tell me when these bands are playing New York City, as opposed
and
to
I'm sure you can do that,
which I'm sure you can do, right? We'll see. But there are apps that can do that. So now are we...
There were apps.
No, there still are. I mean, so
bands in town.
But then again, it's only as good as the data that's out there and all this sort of stuff. But the idea of letting search work for you in the background when there's stuff that you were tracking or there's stuff that you always want to be notified of. It kind of reminds me of the old Google Alerts.
Yeah.
Right? Which is basically
totally
what it is.
Yeah.
So we're just giving you more information about it.
Yeah.
So.
Will it be better or worse than Google Alerts? That is the question.
Yeah. So we saw the whole idea of the ask ... A lot more. They've showed it in YouTube. There's currently, if you're a YouTube creator, some folks in the US have been testing it. In Studio, there's ability to ask YouTube and to.
I need to use that. I have not used that.
To help you both for content creators to help develop their channels a bit more, but also just within YouTube, ask YouTube how do I teach my kid how to ride a bike, and it pulls up a AI generated instructions using YouTube as sources with YouTube videos embedded.
Yeah,
and all that
super
sort of
cool.
Stuff. Yeah. So they also have Ask Gmail. Docs Live, like all of these other ways that Gemini and the AI are integrated in to the current applications like we were talking about earlier. But this is something I want to touch upon. So much of the demos and so much of what they're doing involved using Gemini Live and talking to your device, and like we saw with Rambo last week, rambling on about saying, oh, hey, Gemini, write a document that tells Jason that we're going to do our Google I/O plan on next Wednesday. No, wait, actually do it on Thursday. And they always use the thing where you mess up the days, right? And you just kind of give this whole thing, and it had me thinking, I'm not in a position where I talk to my devices.
Yeah.
I don't hit that live button. I'm not talking. I'm sitting at my desk all day by myself. I'm a typer into those prompts. You are not, though. We were talking. You said you're talking to devices way more often.
I'm talking to devices all the time now.
Really?
Yeah, it's really changed for me. And yeah, possibly also kind of timed with this like Claude exploration that I've been doing the last handful of months. I've just kind of found myself in a position where when I type, what I've noticed is when I type out queries and I'm interacting with typing, I take a lot of extra time editing. It's like typing requires a certain compositional brain.
Yep.
And when I'm talking, I can just talk and let the junk just fly out.
Yep.
And what I'm actually doing as I talk through that, I'm actually giving it more information than if I had edited out the perfect prompt.
Right.
I'm giving it all of this extra context in typing. It takes me half as much time to do because I'm not editing and doing it longhand.
Right.
And I think I told you I had an experience with my wife who, like I mentioned multiple times, she's always kind of behind but curious, and in my mind she represents kind of the normal mindset.
Yeah.
And she was running up against this issue, and she's like, God, it's just not doing what I wanted to do. And I was like, just go in the other room, just shut everything else out, hit that microphone, and just talk for 5 minutes about what you want. Like, in a perfect world, what you hate about what it did, just talk, just ramble. And she comes back like 10 minutes later, and she's like, oh my God, it did exactly what I wanted it to do. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
It takes a mindset shift, but it really does work.
Yeah, so that might be the direction I need to. I might be a bit of a fossil in that regard.
But you don't know until you have that eye-opening moment, right? And then once you do, then you become more curious and like, well, maybe I'll do it over here, and then you go down the
rabbit hole,
the yellow brick road. And you're like, oh, here we go.
Yeah. They showed a bunch of cool uses of Gemini. The thing I've been waiting for, a thing called Google Pics, which I've been using Nano Banana and Google Slides, which is great to generate images to put into presentations, or take a slide you have and they beautify it or whatever. But it's so limiting because you can't edit the final product. Google Pics, and we saw a demo of this. Google Pics allows you to do that. You can select a section and tailor a prompt to the section of the image and have that image get changed. And kind of more, again, verbal, talk to the system and have it make the changes you want to have see made. That's really cool. There's a whole section about Stitch, which is a web web or mobile app application UI designing tool, which I knew existed, but after seeing this demo, I'm like,
last year.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to go home and play with that. Like, I have so many ideas and things I want to do. Like, this is definitely what I would like to, this is the kind of thing I want to play with. The Stitch looked incredible and looked really, really impressive. And then of course Google Flow, like we talked about, which is they announced last year the content creating tools, allowing you to audio, video, music, all that sort of stuff, all bundled in together. So,
I mean and that one, the music part of that, which was easy for probably most people to just disregard because it was like some guy or somebody with a little piano lick that they created, and then they feed it into Omni Flow, sorry. Yeah. And then it gives them kind of like what this song could sound like with that integrated. As a musician, like that's how I've used some of these models in my own work.
Right. It's not making the final song.
It's just giving me ideas. It's like a brainstorming partner. It's like, I like that Rhodes part there. I'm going to integrate something like that. And then I go in and I report it myself. Yeah. And so I that made my ears perk up a little bit.
Oh. Yeah. All right, well, so that's the stuff that came from Search. Let's take another quick break because we're going to go check out Android Auto.
And poof!
We're back at the end of the day of Google I/O. Here we are.
I'm exhausted, man.
We are back. It has been a long day. It's been a long, long, hot day, but we've seen so much and we've talked to so many people. It's been so exciting. Yes, no, but we are... nearing the end of Google I/O 2026, but we still have stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we do, because
yeah.
we haven't talked about smart glasses, we haven't talked about Android Auto,
Right.
two things that we actually got demos
Hands-on with, yep.
hands-on and
Yeah.
heads on.
Yep.
That's a little weird. Android, we want to talk about Android XR first.
Let's get into it. Yeah.
We can talk about that.
Big deal at the show this year, because last year it was kind of conceptual, and now the products are here.
Well, it's interesting because last year they had some demos.
They had some demos, but they were reference devices.
And I feel like the one we got today was a reference device.
we did a demo on the reference device, but the X-Real Project Aura glasses, the products themselves were here at the location for people to try.
But we didn't get to try them.
We didn't get to try them. The line was very long. We saw them. I saw them.
Yeah.
I looked at them. But we were able to talk to awesome product manager over at Google about a lot of the work that they're doing with the glasses and with Android XR and Project Aura and all that sort of stuff. So the X-Real glasses are here. Obviously, they announced at Google I/O, they announced the Warby Parker and what is the other company? Gentle Monster. Doing the audio glasses, which are basically smart glasses without a display. Mm-hmm. So Gemini talks to you and tells you stuff. We did that. We got a sample of how that works. Pretty cool.
Had you tried that last year?
I did not try that last year. Last year, my demo was just purely the glasses with the display.
Oh, okay.
So I'd never done just the audio only experience.
And have you ever done the Meta Ray-Bans?
No, I had not.
Meta.
I had
Okay,
not.
so this is your first time doing like audio only. So what did you think?
I thought it was cool. I thought it was neat.
It's definitely a thing that's been around now for a little while. See a lot of people wearing the Meta Ray-Bans, at least in the Bay Area.
At this show alone, I was counting. I was like, oh, there's the dots, there's the dots, there's the dots. Yeah.
It's also a piece of hardware that is really leaned into with creators. People creating content. It's a great way to capture passively and stuff like that. But so what stood out for you?
Well, I just think the whole experience, after experiencing it last year in the reference device and the demo kind of type thing to the evolution over the past year, it feels more refined. It feels more ready for prime time. Mm-hmm. The use cases we saw are really cool. The integration of Gemini and things like Nano Banana, like I took a picture of you and then had Gemini said, take a picture and do this to it, and it did it. Mm-hmm. And saves it to my Google Photos. It also sends it to the Pixel Watch when the photo is ready. Like the integration between the phone, the watch, and the glasses is really smooth. And like that, the idea of like the whole, you have all these devices, so they should be working together. Mm-hmm. I was impressed by it. I thought it was
and your
cool.
phone might be in your pocket. And, the glasses to watch kind of integration or synergy or whatever you want to call it is a pretty natural way because one of the promises of wearing the smart glasses is so you don't have to pull out your phone.
Yep.
And if you happen to have a watch on and you do something like take a picture but you don't have a display in your glasses, why not save me from having to pull out my phone to interact and poof, it just appears on the watch, which kind of a simple integration, but it's a cool marriage of the two technologies together. Create my widget.
That was something we saw last week with the Android show. The whole idea with Android 17, create my widget, but creating widgets in the display of the glasses is pretty cool. Yeah,
and very interesting how create my widget has. Again, it seemed kind of insignificant because it's widgets, but yet it was on Android, Google, the Google Book.
Yep.
It's now glasses. Apparently this is an effort that they're like, we got to lean hard, into the direction of create my widget. Vibe coding. So display glasses we know later this year coming out. The first audio glasses, as they called them, which they, like you said, they did show off a couple of the frames from Gentle Monster and Warby Parker, which they look fine. Also building that in collaboration with Samsung. Those coming this fall, along with a big collection, I think was what they said. A big collection coming this fall. So, we're still not close. I mean, we're closer than we've ever been as time goes, but we're still not like, here they are.
Yeah, and the X-Real glasses were basically they're dubbed as Project Aura's global debut, right? Yeah. So these are the wired XR glasses that are like the more heftier kind of experience. and they've got the immersive Google Maps. You're running video content into the display. You've got immersive YouTube 180 and 360 degree VR videos. Obviously Gemini in there. You can connect Project Aura with a DisplayPort to a laptop. Multimodal AI stuff. So really big deal, and that's all going to be shipping in 2026. So they announced it previously, the relationship, and said the devices will be shipping globally in 2026. But we're getting like one step closer, like they were real, and the line was very long to get your hands on them. Like they were there. It was cool to see the little kind of Project Aura whole kind of pavilion packed. When we were
a lot of attention, a lot of energy around that. They're a really compelling form factor for XR. It really is the bridge between the display glasses that you saw last year and the full-blown Android XR VR headset. It's the perfect in-between point. I think they're going to be a real interesting use case and a piece of hardware. I really enjoyed my time with it, and I was like, oh man, that would be really cool to have one of those, and not be fully committed to this like huge VR headset, but yet to be able to do some of the things. Like one part of my demo that really stood out was, I think it was called a game called Damio, which is like a tabletop game simulation. And you put the glasses on and boom, there's the tabletop surface, all three-dimensional. You can reach out with your hands because it has hand tracking and move the pieces. And I'm not committing myself to this gigantic friggin' headset, So it'll be really cool. I'll be curious to know what the price is on it.
It does feel like we've had a long journey with Android XR. I mean, like we I feel like we talked to the head of it, the guy who was on stage at the Google Keynote. I forget his name, the gentleman that was on stage that did the demo. But we had him on the show when they initially announced it, a while back, and then Shahram Azadi. I mean, that was back in 2024, right? So like, it was the end of the year 2024, right?
Yeah, it was December 17th, 2024. Good memory.
So here we are.
2024, in fact.
Yeah, so here we are 2 years later, and almost a year and a half, almost 2 years later, and it's finally getting in the hands of consumers. So,
totally. So that's the glasses, and then there was Android Auto. We got to sit inside of a vehicle that had no air conditioning. So
it wasn't that bad. They were very apologetic about the lack of air conditioning, but it wasn't that bad. No, but it was cool to be in a car with the new Android Auto stuff in there. We got a full demo of all the immersive Google Maps, which admittedly I kind of like when they talked about the massive update to Google Maps and they keep pushing that, I kind of like roll my eyes. I'm like, whatever, it's Google Maps. Seeing it in we were in a nice Volvo, and like seeing the integrated, like it was
Excuse me.
Seeing it in that context compared to my flat kind of 2D Google Maps, I was like, oh, this is cool.
There was the baseball stadium.
In San Francisco.
San Francisco Stadium, and it wasn't just like like a land plot or whatever. It was fully three-dimensionalized. They had the Google, if you've ever seen the Google campus, the new kind of like big tent-looking things, like that was all three-dimensionalized. Like it really brings an extra dynamic to the experience. Does it make it more useful? Maybe a little bit, but
I mean, it's good. I think it's good because in the directions, it's like, oh, make a right at and it's like landmarks and like that sort of thing. And so like, I would like to drive it. I would like to have it in my car and see and feel it. But the demo was pretty cool. We also got to see the new Spotify and how it handled the whole video to audio kind of thing, like listening to a video podcast, then when you start driving, it switches to audio. That was really cool. I mean, it just looks like Android Auto really, like, I felt like that was one thing we didn't get that much into. We definitely didn't get into it when we spoke with Samir about the Android show announcements. And we've been hearing a lot of like bits and pieces over this whole year about Android Auto, like these incremental updates. But like seeing it in the context of a car is like, oh yeah, they've really made a lot of major updates to Android Auto, and I see where all the attention to it is paying off.
Well, and the guy who was running the demo also said that sometime in the near future, I can't remember the date that he put on this, but the if there is a forward-facing camera in the car, that can integrate, and that's like shooting outward, right? So shooting into the street in front of you. That can integrate into Gemini Live, so you can take the context,
right?
If you opt into this, of course, and say like, what am I looking at right now? And where should I go? Whatever, let your imagination run wild on it. But I could see that as being really useful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like, check out where I'm at right now. Where should I go? What of these restaurants? Or I don't know.
Yeah.
I think what was it? It was the Transamerica building. It was right in front of the test car, and it identified that. And
well, I will say there was some lag on the Gemini stuff.
Yeah, I wonder if that's
I don't know, but because they had a video running in front of the car that used the front-facing camera of driving through San Francisco, and he said, hey, tell me about the area around me, and it's just blink, and then it's like analyzing. You see like the thinking like it is like you're using the Gemini app, but in the car, and then it was like 6 or 7 seconds later. Which might not seem like a lot, but when you're driving, you've driven past the thing you just asked about.
Yeah. That's true.
Right. So, I mean, we'll again, I hate to use the term your mileage may vary, but your mileage may vary when once you get it working.
That totally works.
Yeah. So, but it was cool to see it all in place and get to sit in the car and that sort of thing. So,
indeed.
Yeah. So some other news just came out during Google I/O related to the whole world of Google and Android. They announced Wear OS 7 today to developers, which finally added announced the integrations for live updates, Wear widgets, and task automation. So that they're saying is people upgrading from Wear OS 6 to Wear OS 7 can get up to a 10% improvement in battery life, which is always great, especially on the small devices.
Yeah.
And basically, of course, Gemini intelligence, like Wear OS, falling in line with everything that came out last week around Android.
Right.
I do wonder why they held it to this week and didn't roll this as part of last week. I feel like Wear was slightly mentioned last week, but it didn't get as much of a attention.
Yeah.
But Wear is always like the redheaded stepchild. But all that got announced on the Android developers blog, and for developers can see what those updates might be for Wear OS 7. But the Pixel Watch and the wearable piece, like we said with the glasses, is still very much a part of the overall experience, and it's clear that they're keeping that part of that, right?
Mm-hmm. So and they have the automated app tasks, the task automation coming too.
Yep.
That's integrating.
Yeah,
I wonder why they waited on this.
I don't know.
Maybe it's just minimal.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah.
And then lastly, also over in the Android developer blog, they announced some updates for Google TV. Nothing major. I was a little disappointed, to be honest with you, that there wasn't, more with Google TV and more with the home, and I guess that's more the hardware, the Made by Google announcement that'll come later this year, and that's usually the consumer kind of side of things. But on the developer side of things, more integration of Gemini to drive discovery and engagement in the TV. And they're doing more implementation with what they call pointing modality, which is basically mouse cursor integration and how that works with the remote. And basically, my mother-in-law has an LG TV with the remote with the shaky cursor where you try to point it. So like clearly that
was one of those like implementations that was like, that's a good idea, but if you've ever used those, it's just like
But here it is, for Google TV, they're adapting the TV app UI library for hover states, scrollable containers, cursor clicks, all testing pointing interactions with mice and all that sort of stuff. So it's about how to use pointer remotes on Google TV.
Okay.
So my mother-in-law has that pointer remote on an LG, and she's got Google TV. She'll be able to use it to navigate Google TV. So if you're a developer and working in that, all that stuff's on the Android developer blog. There's a lot. It's funny. So earlier today, I was sitting with former co-host, friend of the show, Michal Rahman, and I asked him, I said, what's been the most surprising thing about working for Google? And I thought his comment, and I hope Michal doesn't get upset at me for quoting him because it was off the record, but I think I'm speaking a bit more broadly term. He said, you don't realize how big of a company Google is. He's like, he didn't realize how big of a company Google was until he worked there. But being at an event like this, you realize how many pieces there are to the ecosystem, and you were talking about earlier when we were talking about how the thing that works over here now is over here, and this there are so many elements, and we often criticize them for the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing or seemingly not aligned. But I gotta admit, stepping back after this whole day of Google I/O, it seems like there's a lot of alignment.
Yeah, it does. You're absolutely right. It seems like there's a lot of alignment across all of these efforts. I mean, definitely Gemini is clearly the king.
I would say the king. I don't know if it's king. Maybe the glue that's stitching it all together.
Yeah,
perhaps.
I mean, it's certainly a big priority.
Yeah.
I mean, as AI just is in all companies out there, kind of creating their products right now.
Yeah.
and how that's integrating into these different platforms in similar ways. My brain cells aren't firing very well at this time of day.
It is a long day.
With you, Ron.
Yes, it's been a long day.
That's about as much as I have at this point. I agree.
I mean, it is interesting to see that, like, often, sometimes you get contradictory announcements, or like, why are they doing this over here and not over there? But it does seem that, like, say what you will about AI and say what you will about Gemini, it does seem to be a unifying element that's bringing everything under an umbrella.
I wonder how much the internal members of each individual team would agree with the interoperability.
Probably not very much.
But from the outside looking in, it looks like there's a lot of alignment.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So, any other takeaways from Google I/O? What anything that you saw that was worth discussing, or things that you think of?
Oh boy, no. I think I'm just fried. I think I'm pretty toasted at this point. It was a really warm day.
It was,
and I could just feel my neck burning as
it
we
was
were
very
walking
hot.
around shore.
It is cooler now, thankfully.
Thankfully, it's cooling down. But no, I think from a technology perspective, what would you say about the vibe of the event? I feel like last year, for whatever reason, it could have just been perception bias or something, but I felt like there was more excitement around AI last year.
I will agree. In the keynote itself, and I don't know if it picked up if you watched the live stream at home, if you were watching it, a lot of the applause moments were off or missed.
There were a couple of real missed moments where they expected applause
and there was none.
Did not happen.
Or there were moments where there was applause and they didn't remember to stop and let the applause happen before you go to the next thing, right? Doing a live show is always hard, and you can't anticipate what people are going to be excited about. But there was no real Oprah moment of the oh my god, everyone going crazy about this whole thing, and just kind of we were at a lovely happy hour that they held for the press where we got to talk to some of our favorite people at Google. Some have been on the show and not on the show. It was off the record, so we can't talk about it.
Yep.
But the point I want to make is that it did feel that this feels like, and going back to that alignment thing, it does feel like the end result of this Google I/O is a more focused, is a more tactful, is a more iterative, this is where we're taking it and we're continuing that, and sometimes that's not as exciting.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Just simply.
But I think overall, good event. There's a bunch of people returning tomorrow. I will not.
Yes, back to life tomorrow, unfortunately. But developers, hopefully, they're getting what they need to do all their stuff. And if you're a developer out there, we want to hear from you. If you attended the show and didn't see us, we saw some folks said hello. It was great to see people who were fans of the show.
Yeah.
But if you attended Google I/O, email us at contact@AndroidFaithful. We want to hear from you, what your experience was like.
Please.
Also, we should have mentioned this at the top of the show, but this is our 150th episode.
Oh, like a nice round number.
Yeah. So 150th episode of Android Faithful. It would have been nicer to get Flo, and Wynn's at Kotlin Conf right now, and
can't we get a cake in here?
I know. Yeah. So it's a little unceremonious. So you and I in a empty patio area.
I don't know. 150 at Google I/O kind of.
Yeah, it feels nice. It feels nice. But thank you to everybody for listening. I know this past 2 weeks have been a little not usual.
Yeah.
But hopefully, the Samir Samad interview last week was quality enough for you. And this kind of us on the scene at Google I/O gives you a little taste of what we saw. We'll be back next week with the show fully, back to normal, full live stream and everything, right after Memorial Day here in the States.
Yep.
So
that's right. We'll be back to the normal routine next week.
Yep.
And
150 episodes in the book of Android Faithful. That's a lot. Whew.
I know.
Yeah. Well, thank you to everybody for listening. You all made it make it worthwhile. So
thank you, everybody. You're all awesome. Thanks to our patrons who support us and make this show possible. Patreon.com/Android Faithful. And of course, you can find everything you need to know about this show. Everything that we produce goes up at AndroidFaithful.com.
Yep.
So check it out.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Happy Google I/O 2026.
And let us know what you thought of it. Tell us in the comments or shoot us emails or whatever. We want to hear what you think of all the announcements, everything. And we'll do probably a more detailed kind of. We'll get Flo, I think Flo's on the show next week, and we'll get her reactions. And we'll go from there.
So cool.
All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think the whole gang will be back together next week. So we'll do a whole big debrief. So.
Jam packed.
Yeah.
And All right. We'll see you next week on another episode of Android Faithful.
Take it easy.
Bye, you guys.